Omutan hokure aratakura. Santu kakoran shipa. Sentu nema kun.
Mate, there's clearly an appetite for an upstart studio to completely humble Bethesda and the Elder Scrolls series, well, or lack thereof, the Elder Scrolls at the moment. And you know what, although it's flown under the radar, Fatekeeper looks like my cup of tea to do so, I must say. So I guess today, I wanted to highlight something that's fully caught my eye this past week, because if I'm being honest, nobody's really talking about it, and, well, I want to talk about it, so yeah, let's dive in. So it's coming from a new studio called Paraglacial, who are essentially made up of ex-Grimlore Games devs. If you know, you know. They've got form, from previous titles such as SpellForce 3, which had some pretty tight mechanics, to be fair, but it certainly looks like a solid shot to break through that indie barrier and leapfrog current competition like Awakened Realms, the ones who did the great Tainted Grail. Look, devs are already out there trying to fill the void Skyrim left in the fantasy RPG realm, and Fatekeeper promises reactive combat, deep character progression, and handcrafted world that actually looks like someone gave a shit about it. Like, look at the textures, do you know what I mean? Like, the visuals, they look top tier. And I'm not poking fun at Tainted Grail or anything, but that's something Fatekeeper looks like it's got the edge on, is the visual aspect. Let's hope the game's mechanics and branching narratives can compete. Not that it's a competition, the more the merrier, to just knock Bethesda off their pedestal. But I think there's a real hunger right now for something that gives us that feeling again, you know what I mean? Oblivion, Skyrim, whatever your flavour. Games where you just wander, get lost, and end up down some rabbit hole fighting ghosts or all sorts of creatures with the world dripping in atmosphere. Bethesda haven't delivered that in what feels like forever. I'm more of a fantasy guy, so Bethesda's Fallout has never really matched up to the likes of Skyrim. For myself, for me personally, that's just me. But let's be honest, Starfield, even though I am a massive sci-fi buff, it came and went. Beautiful in some places, but it had zero soul. And it therefore had no pull for me. Do you know what I mean? But like Tainted Grail, Fatekeeper feels like it might be cut from that same cloth, Focused, atmospheric, hopefully no bloat. Just give me a chunky world, some moral decisions, weapons that feel like they matter, and let me go off on the beaten path. That's it, it's not complicated, Bethesda. That's the formula. Really. Switching gears to combat, which I think looks really solid from what I can tell. You have the classic magic left hand and one-handed weapon on the right, but the telekinetic tossing of enemies really brings me back to the ragdoll mechanics in The Force Unleashed, which I am not mad about at all. You have the gore, the blood, the executions, everything I'm looking for basically in a first look, I kind of received here. So if the combat does end up being half decent and they don't overstuff the map with busy work or, like I said, the bloat, this could quietly be one of the more interesting RPGs on the way. And yeah, it's early days, but I don't know, I've kind of got that feeling, I must admit. Maybe it's the genre of dark fantasy. Shout out Berserk, it's my favourite genre. Dark fantasy and dark sci-fi, just my favourite. I just don't understand why no one's really picking this up. I've not really heard a whisper, if I'm being honest. I've seen some shorts and some reels of people just talking about it for 10 seconds, but I don't know, maybe it's the lack of a flashy trailer or a big marketed event to showcase that trailer. Or maybe it's because it's not from one of the big name studios, but that doesn't always mean anything. Sometimes the best RPGs are the ones that don't come with all the noise. The ones built by devs who've been around the block and I guess just want something class without trying to please a shareholder. Anyway, I'll be keeping my eye on Fatekeeper for sure. It comes to early access on Steam in the winter. No talk about PlayStation or Xbox yet. But seems like they'll be sitting on a bag of money if they don't, right? I don't know. What do you reckon? Am I chatting shit? Either way, sound off in the comments. Like, share and subscribe and all that stuff. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.